All right, Shalom. Before I start, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakakurash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Peace, blessings, and salutations to all the elect Akim, Wa'akwath, learning and teaching in truth and sincerity. Another video through the Spirit. Your brother Malak from GMS Detroit. I was just going to be playing a couple clips from that show, 1923. Because it brought me back to mind. It's easy to focus on Southern Kingdom when looking at the oppression that we went through here in America, but you can't forget Northern Kingdom as well. Our brothers and sisters, specifically Gad and Reuben. All right, Esau Edom did a hell of a job on them. He's obliterated them to the point to where they can be easy to forget about. Out of sight, out of mind, because of how bad he decimated them. All right, and this man, his hands are covered in blood. The things that the so-called white man did to be able to have this country, it took mass genocide. It took mass indoctrination, right? He didn't come here upholding, they claim to be Christians, right? They didn't come here doing what Jesus said to do. Love your brother, love your neighbor. They did everything the Bible says not to do. So we're going to take a look at how did the so-called natives, lose their culture, right? In which, granted, they're Israelites, and they got over here after a while. And the culture that they were worshiping, they were going off. Nevertheless, they are the Israelites. So how did we go from Northern Kingdom running the land to Esau Edom, to Northern Kingdom speaking their broken Hebrew to now speaking English and having to wear the white man's clothing? All right, we'll show you how. We're gonna take a look at says what this title says: why was the Native American girl treated this way? Because she's dealing with the devil. All right, we're gonna take a look at a notorious boarding school, the Carlisle Indian Industrial School, and we're gonna tie it to scriptures, because the fact that the so-called Native Americans went through what they went through here in the Americas, the indigenous Americans, right, and the rest of Northern Kingdom, so-called Latinos and Hispanics, as they were called after they're conquered, the suffering that they went through here in the Americas is proof that they are the Israelites. All right, so let's get it going.
Heavens, girl, the fruit will rot on the vine at this rate.
It's the thorns.
Jesus wore a crown of thorns, and no complaint left his lips.
I'm not Jesus.
No, you're not. Stop leaving the fruit in the middle. In the middle. Stop worrying about the thorns and worry about me.
I have more.
And the false prophet.
So you see, she's being tortured, right? She acted up, so she's being tortured. And this doesn't, this show, although it gives, a little depiction, it doesn't do true justice to the horrors that were going on in these boarding schools, on reservation and off reservation. The rape, straight up like that, y'all, R word, that was happening to these children by these white colonizers, men and women, right? The beatings, right? The murder. As you see, she's being whipped on her back. She's being beaten, right? If they were caught speaking their language, if they would, misquote a scripture, if they were doing something dissatisfactory, right? Or unsatisfactory. She wasn't picking the crop properly, so she was beaten horribly. And the fact that this was allowed to happen, we'll start at the beginning, y'all. What was a part of Gad's prophecy? Genesis 49. Go to it. Genesis 49 and 19. It says, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome him at the last. Right? Gad, the so-called Native American Indians, They were overcome by the colonizers utterly, which would go on to become, the 13 colonies and become America, right? The armies of the invading force, right? You had Columbus come over here, different Cortez, Hernan Cortez, which he was a fucking demon on 2 legs when you read up on him. Boat by boat, ship by ship, landed here, created settlements, towns, cities, came with muskets, guns, right? Disease, all these different methods that they brought over here to take our brothers and sisters down. This is how America was settled. It wasn't through peace and love. It was through bloodshed, through war, right? Many wars, right? You have famous wars such as, the Battle of Wounded Knee, right? The Seminole Wars. That's how Gad was overcome, all right? But at the end of this prophecy, it says what? He shall overcome at the last. And that's the part that Esau, Edom don't want to deal with. That's the part that scares him. The fact that the injustices that he did to Gad, and not only them, but all the Israelites, he will be repaid through equal measure and some. So Gad and Reuben were conquered. They lost the land. They lost the tribal rights. They lost, the rivers, all this and all that. But we're going to get it all back through Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai in the form of our kingdom. All right, so let's look up something real quick. This is one of the most notorious boarding schools, y'all. The Carlisle Indian Industrial School was a boarding school for Native American children in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, that operated from 1879 to 1918. It was the first federally run boarding school for Native Americans that was located off of their reservation. The school's goal was to assimilate Native American children into mainstream culture, right? And, once again, the so-called white man believes that his view of life is the authority. You have to conform to my ways or you're a savage. You have to believe in my God or you're uncivilized. And if you don't, we'll kill you. And that's how Esau Edom, the so-called white man, has been running the earth. That's how he gets down. Today, all it's been changed to is democracy and capitalism. If you don't conform to our democracy, so-called, and capitalism, we're going to come kill you. That's what the elites do. Either you do what we tell you or we come kill you. We'll paint you to be a terrorist. We'll come up with an excuse to wage war against you, and we'll destabilize your country and your economy over the course of decades, unless you look, do what we tell you. Set up a central bank in your country. That's how he gets down. We're gonna jump down. I want to get just some of the main points right. It says more than 7,800 children from the Indian tribes were separated from their communities and sent to the school, right? So thousands. Let's see. They ended up turning it into it's a military training school now after everything was all said and done. But I want to get some history, right? Just letting you see some pictures. There's one main guy. Okay, here we go. Yep. Founded in 1879 by Lieutenant Richard Henry Pratt. Yep. The main demon in charge. Under U.S. government authorization. So this was allowed to happen by the government. It says Carlisle Indian School was an early federally funded off-reservation Indian school initiated by the U.S. government. Choctaw Academy in Scott County, Kentucky was the first such boarding school funded by the U.S. government through 1819 Civilization Fund Act, right? So this is one of the earlier schools funded off reservation. You had schools on reservation and schools off. This was one of the first ones off. So you were Esau was able to completely separate them, get them completely zeroed out and away from any help. Reading the second paragraph, it says, Pratt had earlier supervised Native American prisoners of war and supported some of them in gaining education at Hampton College. He became convinced that education was the key to assimilation. In his own words, Pratt's motto was, kill the Indian, save the man. So that's where that phrase comes from, y'all. Kill the Indian, save the man. Kill the savage, save the man. That comes from Richard Henry Pratt. He's known as, I want to find the quote. They call him, I'm going to find it. I'm not even going to spoil it. I want to find what they called him. It says, the U.S. applied this principle to the cultural assimilation efforts of the larger American Indian boarding school system by requiring children to speak only English, practice Christianity, take on new names, and wear European American style clothing. Does that sound Christian-like? Does that sound Christian-like, to force people under the threat of death to convert to your way of lifestyle? You so-called, white Christians, right? That isn't. Is that the love that Jesus told you to spread? That don't sound like that Jesus love y'all be talking about. And this guy, he's also apparently he's known for coining the term racism. Apparently, he says Pro wrote that he believed that Native Americans were equal to European Americans and that the school worked to immerse students. So they throw that fluff in there, right? That motherfucker was a demon. Oh yeah, they all were. Yeah, if you believe they was equal, why was you still whipping them and beating the shit out of them, right? Y'all know how Esau do. Gotta, fluff it up. I want to get the term that they called him by. Let me find it real quick. Okay, here we go. I think I had to click on his name. It says Pratt is associated with the first recorded use of the word racism, which he used in 1902 to criticize racial segregation in the United States. He is also known for the phrase "kill the Indian, save the man." Right, so he was one of the first people apparently that used the word in law. But don't get it twisted, right? Hey, we all know ain't no such thing as a good devil. Despite the fact that he thinks that he was doing something right, the motherfucker was a demon. Right? That's how Esau justifies things in his head. Oh, I don't. What does he do, y'all? He wanted them to assimilate. He wanted to pull them out of their way of life and absorb them into his. That's how Esau gets down. Right? According to scripture, what does he go around doing? Habakkuk 2:5. Yeah, also, because he transgresseth by wine. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. These motherfuckers sail from across the country. From across the planet, across the globe, came to the Americas. It says, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And this is the nature of Esau Edom, even still to this day. Spreads his military out all throughout the world, takes over this over there, takes over this, U.S. embassies all over the goddamn place, right? Forcing people to speak his language, wear his clothes, be familiar with his media and culture. And if you don't, you'll become alienized and put out from the ability of developing any power as a nation or as a people. That's how Esau gets down. You live according to our way of life, or you don't live at all. All right, and regardless of the fact that some of them was just blatant demon devils and some of them might have been softer, they're both still doing you wrong. The scriptures tell you not to remove your neighbor's landmark. All right, nations are supposed to be divided for a reason. The Heavenly Father created that. All right. Just reading through ahead a little bit. This is back under the Carlisle School. Let me see. I'll start at this paragraph, and then we'll jump down to the second one, right? So right here it says as part of Pratt's curriculum and in cultural and language immersion, the school students were expected to learn English. School officials also required students to take new English names either by choice or assignment. This was confusing as the names from which they had had no meaning for them. Luther Standing Bear, Sekungwa Ugalala, was one of the first students when Carlisle began operations in 1879. Right, and that's another thing, man. your name is supposed to have a meaning. You know, in English, a motherfucker just name you some shit. Not even just cause, right? Names have power behind them. Our people have a culture. We don't just throw shit out in the air. You name somebody a bad name, and that you know, that's a omen name prediction that can stick with them. You name somebody killer, this motherfucker grows up to be a killer. You name somebody, you know, let's say, you know, the name Damon, right? Another way of saying demon, and this nigga grows up to be a fucking loose cannon. You shouldn't be surprised. Jump down to this second paragraph. It says what? The children were forced to change their manner of dress and to give up their traditional tribal ways. The boys all had long hair, which was a strong tradition in their cultures, which, like I said, you know, they started going off over time while they were over here. It says it was cut short into Euro-American style. Students were required to wear school uniforms of American-style clothing, and girls were provided with uniform dresses. Right, and so if you violated these things, you could be subject to getting your head cracked, right? Getting tortured, in certain cases, you know, killed, right? Okay, here we go. Yep, he called it the Supreme Americanizer. I just had to type it in manually. From Richard Henry Pratt, right? The program that he put them Gadites through, y'all. Basically, look, by the time you went through it, bitch, you know what I'm saying? You were gonna be completely assimilated or die. Those were your choices, y'all. The Supreme Americanizer was a program at the Carlisle Industrial School that sent Native American students to live with white families. The program was designed to help students learn how to live in white culture and become skilled workers. So, you know, once you went through the Supreme Americanizer program, at that point you were fully broken. Speaking English, you're wearing the clothes. They know, you know, you're not going to put up no threat to so-called white supremacy, right? To any of his people, cities, or, you know, inhabitants. None of that. And once again, this was funded by your great United States government. The prime suspect all the damn time.
For 150 years.
Now, right here, Indian boarding school abuse, right? I just typed it on YouTube. I remember seeing some interviews, because, you know, it got in the news, you know, big 2 years ago, apparently, right? Investigations into abuse at Native American boarding schools. So now, you know, over 100-some years later, now you want to, you know, say something about it, which they're not going to do anything about it. But that's how Esau does. After all the centuries of death and destruction, you know, he'll throw up a little 5-minute documentary, and then you know, the next Cardi B song comes out, and it's all you know, it's all washed under the rug. There's one interview in particular, man, I wish I could find it. It was an older Gadite man. He's giving the details of things that was happening to him, and he's crying. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I'll let this play out a little bit from Al Jazeera. I'm not able to find it, but forcibly removing children from their families. Not only did they do this in America, they did this in Canada. It was called the 60 Scoop. And then in the 1960s, they would forcibly take Gadite children all throughout Canada, take them from their families and drop them off in Edomite households and force them to be raised there. And, you know, they were accusing them, oh, you're not raising them under the standards of Canada, basically, right? Not giving them the proper healthcare system, proper education, so we have the right to take them. That type of shit, right? That's how Esau gets down. It says these schools were continued up through the 1970s. Y'all just saw that, so can't nobody, man, that was a long time ago. Where are y'all? Bitch, there's people that were born in the 70s, that were born in the 60s and went through this. Touched, beat, tortured, right? It didn't stop in the year 1900. Motherfuckers act like we got to the year 1900 and the world wasn't racist no more.
What if one day someone just came here to the house and just took you away, and you never saw your parents again, and they never told you why?
She was only 9, and my granddaughters will be 8 soon, so thinking back boggles our mind that this happened and what they had to go through.
An Indigenous group in Canada says it's discovered 751 unmarked graves at the site of a former residential school.
Indigenous leaders are calling it a crime against humanity, the second such discovery in less than a month.
The Indigenous people from Canada, they always knew it was there. They said, you need to look to our neighbors.
Things like that happened here. Kind of want to brush it aside. Hopefully it stays buried. Hopefully it's not brought out in the open. But we've had those kinds of atrocities happen to us here in the United States.
I've talked to elders who tell me that all the children in the village had to leave. And there was an eerie quiet in the village. There's no...
So I'm gonna stop this one right there. Right, this is a 30-minute one. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. There's another one I wanted to show too. Yep, that one right there. Now just think for a second, y'all. If you were kidnapped and forced to live with, you know, so-called white people, Edomites, right? As you get older, when you're indoctrinated into their culture, what most likely, what type of wife are you gonna end up taking? You know, Edomite bitch. What type of wife is that son gonna end up taking? So on and so forth. So this is one of the ways, you know, this is some of the ways that the Israelite foreigners come about. When we're taken from our customs, from our culture, we're forced to live under another man's. This is a part of Esau's. This is how he got down on us. This is why you have many of us who don't know, you know, who we are, what we're supposed to be doing. The mystery of the Gentiles. And it happened back then in ancient biblical times, and it's still happening up to these days. And Esau Edom, he tried his damnedest to wipe us the fuck out, y'all. Let me get he tried his daggone damnedest. All right, just showing this real quick. It says, what, due to the devastating effects of Spanish colonization, including slavery, disease, and violence, the Taino population rapidly declined, leaving only a few hundred individuals by the mid-16th century, and by 1802 they were officially declared extinct by Spanish authorities, meaning essentially no Taino people were left at that point, which that ending part isn't true. You know, they were chopped down to several hundred though, you know, from, you know, actually when you click on it, they tell you they estimated between early population between 100,000 to 1 million, right? This dealing with the tribe of Joseph, right? The tribe of Ephraim, going from 1 million to a couple hundred left, all right? And what prophecy does that fulfill, right? Because not only was it Gad and Reuben over here in the Americas, but you had the rest of, I gotta move this down, the rest of the 10 tribes, right? Issachar, you know, Manasseh, Zebulon, Asher. Esau did a mother effing number on the northern tribes, wiping them out, killing them. The indoctrination schools, boarding schools, right? Trying to completely erase all traces of the people that were here previously, so he could set up his, you know, fucking kingdom, his slice of the pie. Genesis 49, and that fulfills this prophecy. Genesis 49, in which we know, you know, the Tainos, the island, so-called what they call today Puerto Rico, right? They didn't completely go extinct. You know, what's the evidence of that? The so-called Puerto Ricans that exist today, right? Although they were knocked down to a very small number. Genesis 49 and 22 says, Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him and shot at him and hated him. Right, who is the archers? Esau Edom. This is parabolic speech. Esau Edom, the so-called white man, tried to wipe them off of the map. All right, and Joseph being a fruitful bow, meaning what? They're known for having children. whose was even a fruitful bowl by a well, the landmass that they're at, surrounded by water, Puerto Rico, whose branches run over the wall. They're known for, Northern Kingdom. They're coons. They'll go run to make leagues with Esau, Edom, and it always turns out bad. Like it also tells us in Hosea 9:13, they deliver their children to the murderer. So it's no surprise that, you go from 1 million to a couple hundred in a very short span of time, fucking around with Esau. This blood is on his hands. All right, Salak, y'all. Just gonna finish out. Play some of this clip. I can go back to that other. I got another one of them clips with that girl, that boarding school girl. But let's let this play, because not only were they being, forced to conform, to be assimilated, but all kinds of debaucherous things were happening to them children. Right? We just learned, the whole backyard full of graves, over 700 unidentified graves, being killed, right? Being whipped, all kinds of shit, hair cut against their will. But they were being sexually abused in them schools, y'all. America has a very rich history of darkness. You understand me?
Thank you so much for joining us. Can you help our viewers understand the
American children to remote so-called boarding schools as part of a systematic effort to seize tribal lands and eradicate Native American culture? Dozens of these boarding schools were run by the Catholic Church or its affiliates. A new Washington Post investigation
were run by what? The Catholic Church and its affiliates.
Investigation has revealed widespread sexual abuse of generations of these children at many of those institutions. Lisa Desjardins has the story, and a warning: the story contains sensitive subject material.
Jeff, this report documents the sexual abuse of more than 1,000 children by over 100 priests, sisters, and brothers. But experts believe that number is likely a significant undercount. Earlier today, we spoke with Deborah Parker, Chief Executive of...
A significant undercount. And y'all, I said I. When Esau, whenever he's reporting on negative stats of the things that he's done in his history, he likes to underreport, under account. Oh, only a couple slaves died during all the years. A fucking liar. We only threw a couple slaves overboard. Use a fucking liar. We only a couple of Indians got. Use a fucking liar. Esau notoriously likes to undercount his wrongdoings. Keep that in mind for all of his statistics.
The National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition.
For us, this is a national crime scene, and our relatives, our Native American relatives, deserve to know the truth.
For more, we're joined by Washington Post reporter Dana Hedgepeth, who was part of the team that reported this story and is a member of the Hallawasaponi tribe of North Carolina. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you help our viewers understand the scope of the abuse that you uncovered?
This is a very important topic, and there's been a lot of work already done on this. We hope to move the ball forward and shed new light on it. And what we found in our investigation gave new details about the level of sexual abuse that was done by Catholic priests, sisters, and brothers from the 1800s.
Priests, sisters, and brothers. Like I said earlier in the video, I don't have to make shit up. I don't have to lie on a fucking Edomite. Y'all are demons. That's what y'all do.
To the 1900s at schools. Most of the abuse occurred in the 1950s and 60s and involved 1,000 children, and experts like Deb Parker and others believe that that is really only the tip of the iceberg, that the abuse was more widespread, deeper than probably we found, but documents are inconsistent and incomplete. So that is what we found in our investigation.
We're talking about Native boys and girls ranging from...
And I'm sorry I keep pausing it, y'all, but like she said, it's the tip of the spear. The little documents that they could find, because much of the real evidence they like to get rid of so that you can't point the finger on them for their evil. If you think that they were only being abused from the 50s and the 60s, you're a fucking incompetent fool. Since the first day they set one of them schools up, they got to touching on them babies, man. Don't be a dummy.
Age from some of the very smallest into teenage years, some generations, multiple generations at the same school by multiple abusers. Deborah Parker also spoke to us about why some of those survivors stayed silent so long.
Many of these boarding schools survivors were told that if they tell anyone that they'd be hurt, or that that God wouldn't love them, or that they would actually go to hell. There's a great fear in telling the story.
This speaks to one of the evils of this kind of abuse. But reporters have talked about in the national spotlight, we've had a conversation about Catholic abuse of children for decades now. Why do you think it's taken so long to pay attention to what happened in Native?
Catholic abuse of children for decades. Really millennia. Shit.
Land.
Folks like myself, Native Americans, know these stories. They've been passed down, and families, people know these stories. It is not a new history. Unfortunately, it's a painful history that's been recognized. Probably one of the best reasons that this history is coming more to light now in more recent times is twofold. One, in the early 2000s, the Boston Globe did great work of exposing the abuse that was happening there. So that showed people that the Catholic Church, people could be held accountable. And that was very much a turning point for Native Americans. These were very young children. They didn't know at the time or understand that they were being abused. And the way abuse happens, unfortunately, it takes so long to process. It's painful. People repress those things. And only as they became adults did they really understand and feel more comfortable of coming forward.
There are so many gut-wrenching stories here that are important to tell, but could one stand out of a person or family that you think viewers should be aware of?
I would say Clarita Vargas, who went to a Catholic-run school in Omak, Washington. And Clarita came forward, and she was one of several dozen victims in a large lawsuit that eventually got settled. But what really stands out with Clarita's stories that the lawyers noticed right away is the movie nights, as the lawyers always called it. Clarita went there when she was a young girl, and sadly she was lured, like many children. A priest named Father Morris would invite them to his office on Sunday nights for movie night. And if you can imagine being a young child.
Hey, man. Hey, Esau. Hey, movie night. Hey, Esau, you got something coming, dude. So now let's go back here for a second, and I'm hoping they don't take it, right? I'm hoping they don't take the video down. So now, you know, the girl got beat and whipped, right? This is going back to that 1923 thing now, right? She got beat and whipped. All those things happened to her. You know, I've never seen the show, so I don't know if anything, if she got touched, right? But we know that that's a reality of the majority of many of the Northern Kingdom children that went there, right? So let's click on this next clip.
Oh, I'm sure I've no idea, Father. A wild animal, this one.
Show me your hands, Judd. Would you place your hands on the disc, please?
On angels. But have prophetic powers and understand all knowledge.
Faster, sister.
And if I have all faith.
Faster!
So as to remove mountains, but have not lost. Breathe, Father, breathe.
Now look at that. She's still naive. You beat the child, and yet she begs for mercy on your behalf.
And why is that? Because we're more noble people than Esau Edom. I have a whole playlist for that on YouTube. We are more noble, of examples like that. And even though all the wrongdoings that these people have done to us, you will find many occasions where Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans will come to the aid of the so-called white man or defend them against something, even though these devils did us nothing but dirty. Why? Because we're the more noble people. We're Jacob, right? Y'all are Esau. So, you know, it came out, you know, what she was doing to that little girl, and she had to get punished for it. Now, and I like this third clip, because here it is. They all do all that to us, but they're not bad. But if we were to retaliate, we're bad. How about that? Let me play this one. So, you know, you laid up in the bed all at night, your head all fucked up because they didn't beat you, touched you, beat on you some more, and then you get up and do something about it, you're the bad guy.
you going? Home. What are you doing? Making war.
Smacking the shit out of her.
Amaya, cook. Hekya, oyami. Hekya, oyamo. Hilani way buhay.
Yep, hey, so and she's speaking in her native tongue in an act of rebellion. So she went in there and got to putting work on her ass. And that's the part of, when you go back to that Genesis 49, y'all, that's the part that Esau doesn't want to deal with. The fact that Gad is going to overcome in the end. Esau don't want none of that smoke. You don't want no parts of that. Let's read that Genesis 49 again. Genesis 49 and 19. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. And I can't wait for that day, y'all. I can't wait for that day. You did all these things to us, right? Took us, spoiled us, scattered us, beat on us, indoctrinated us. But there's going to come a day that we're allowed to tag you back. And Esau is not built for that, y'all. He does not want the hands of, hey, we going what? Hey, what is that? Matter of fact, when you go back up, it says Judah what? Genesis 49 and 8. It says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down to thee. All right. Now this prophecy is dealing with Judah is twofold. Judah specifically and the tribes as a whole. The fact that all of our hands will be at the necks of our enemies, the nation of Israel. All right. But Judah is the head tribe, you know, amongst the brethren. Right. We're going to get our hands back on Esau Edom for all the things that he's done. We have there's so I could just pass out from speaking so much of all the things, all the videos that could be made on this man's injustices and indignities against us. That's why TikTok just got banned, right? This is Sunday morning, you know, we just got done with class here in, you know, GMS Detroit. You know, you waking up to TikTok not working, right? Esau wants to get rid of all the evidence of all the horror that he's done. But hey, the shameful spewing is on his glory now. So that's it, y'all. I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakurash, the honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, peace, blessings, and salutations to all the elect Akim wa Akwak, learning, teaching, and